All right, all right, all right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wives Club. We are so happy to have you here. For anyone who doesn't know, I am Maggie, and in 2021, I booked a session with the late great Kevin Samuels, and it wasn't for me. I'm well aware, and I accept that I'm average, but I always used to get convicted whenever he would say, "Where are the older women to teach the young?" So, in that session, I asked his permission to create a community of like minded and marriage minded women because I firmly believe whether we are currently married, formerly married, or want to be married, we should carry ourselves as wives because wives do move differently. I am so grateful. Not only did Kevin give us his blessing, he actually came up with the name The Wives Club. So, it started with just me, and then AV joined us. AV, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am a future wife. Like Maggie, also had the opportunity to meet with Kevin Samuels. Super life-changing sessions for me as a future wife. Everybody talks about the modern woman mindset, right? The plot thickens, it thickens with that stuff. But, I was able to kind of make a lot of adjustments over these last 2 years since sitting down with him. So, like Maggie, also convicted in sharing that with future wives out there. So super happy to be back this week.
Oh my goodness. And she's back with her soundboard. You are correct, Rodney. So after AV joined us, then Lisa joined us. Lisa, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm Lisa. I am a current wife of 17 years. I was a big fan of Kevin's when he was with us, part of his Patreon, on a few of his shows. And I'm happy to be back to share some wife information, um, my struggles, my what I'm doing now, and any kind of thing that will help anyone who wants to um, be more in the wife mindset. So I'm happy to be back.
All right, fantastic. And then after Lisa, Hermisha joined us in the Wives Club. Hermisha, please introduce yourself.
I had to unmute myself. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here again. I am Hermisha. I represent as a former wife and, dearly miss Kevin and just grateful for the opportunity to glean from his wisdom and how I could be a better wife moving forward. As y'all know, he was trying to help me save my marriage at the time. And on the other side of this, I just learned that at the end of the day, you can only be your best self. You can only do your part. And so that's what we're going to get into today, and that's what we're about here, helping us become the best version of ourselves as women. So happy to be here.
All right, so everybody sit back and relax. We are going to take our laps around the Wives Club Mountain. Like Hermisha, I am also a former wife of 10 years. I married my college boyfriend, met him at 18, married right after school at 25, and I was married for 10 years. Loved being married and have two boys from the marriage. But I got caught up in that modern woman mindset. We're equal, we're partners. I can do everything a man can do until I hit the wall 10 years and two kids later. And I don't want all that burden and pressure. So unfortunately, the marriage did end in divorce. However, since then, I've been in another long-term relationship, 12 years with the 1% man, which means for me, I've had to do a lot of work to adjust to get on his program and be more of a support system. And I've never been happier, but that's what we share here. Our lessons learned, what we've gotten right, and what we've gotten wrong. All right, so as per usual, this episode, we are going to be discussing one of Kevin's greatest. I think everything in his catalog is incredible. And there's an agenda, so we will go through the questions that we have. And then we will bring up your comments. If you all want to chat with us, we'll drop the link and let's get started. So the episode that we are talking about tonight is called 4 Signs of a Low Value Woman. Kevin had such a way with titles and a way of grabbing our attention, right? And if there was something that Kevin was known for, it was that high value man concept, which triggered a lot of people, both men and women. And what I loved is that he had a really solid criteria on how to define that and what it meant to him and the standard that he used. And so, of course, us being the counterparts as women, well, what makes a high value woman? But instead, brilliantly, what Kevin shared with us is one of his most famous acronyms, sign language. All right. So if you all know what those letters stand for, we are going to get into it. But it is shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. So if you haven't watched this episode or you haven't watched it in a while, I highly recommend that you all do. All right. So our first question, and I will kick it off. So for the shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right, which is hardest to overcome? So I'm going to say for this one, for me, the need to be right. And I think it just comes from our programming, and I'm a student of academia, but the way that our society is promoting men and women are equal. And yes, we are of equal value, but I know we are very different and we complement each other well. And I think it's beautiful. But oftentimes that mindset, that modern competitive mindset, means that every hill is the hill we want to die on. And so really learning to submit, which is respectful cooperation, if you've chosen a good one, it should be easy. So that would be my answer. The need to be right is probably the hardest one for me to overcome. All right, AV, I'm going to come to you. Shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. Uh-oh. Which one is the hardest for you to overcome?
This is such a great question. So, as we think about this, there's just so much thought that goes into, the video that we review for the week, but also the questions that we go around the mountain. Like Maggie said, we put so much effort into that for you guys so we can have a meaningful conversation. So, I thought this was such a great question. If we were to look at sign language and break it down from there, um, this is going to be a little controversial, but I'm going to go with insults because I don't run around insulting people. Like, that's not what I do. Right. But I think sometimes as women, our behavior can come off as insulting to men if you are not careful. Right. Meaning you might not say something, but your actions might indicate something different. Meaning, let's say somebody made a big sacrifice to do something for you and they're kind of letting you know because they talk about it. They'll say, hey, I did this thing. Now you have this thing. It's actually insulting to not say thank you. It's actually insulting to not be grateful. There's little things that you can do where sometimes we're not aware of it as women. So I picked that not for the verbal cues that show that I could be insulting sometimes, but over the last year, and I'm going to go back to when I first started consulting with Kevin. Let's call it a 2-year journey. I didn't realize that some of my behavior, by not being grateful or thoughtful or, just kind of really looking at the holistic picture of things, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And so until I started listening to men, listening to content like this that is men centric, but also um, reflective and creating a community like this for women where we can be reflective. You don't realize you're doing something until people talk about it, right? So I thought that was super important. And I'm going to go with I for insults.
All right. Thank you so much, AB. So insightful. All right, Lisa, I am coming to you. The question is, out of shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right, which is the hardest to overcome?
Sorry, unmute myself. Okay. So the hardest I think to overcome, and I was looking at, different things in my life. I think for me would be the need to be right, and not only just for myself, but well, let me start with myself. I noticed when I was like in 5th grade um, that I picked up what is called an attitude, you know, and I picked it up from a girl in my 5th grade class who was probably supposed to be in 7th or 8th grade for one. She was way bigger than everybody else. And she had all this attitude that we see now and just, you not my teacher, you not this and all that. So I realized that, and even with kids in school, I work with my aunts who have been school teachers. I got a sister-in-law who's a school teacher, and they tell me about how the kids act now. I'm like, we pick up this kind of stuff from a young age, that need to be right. Arguing with my sisters, arguing with kids in the schoolyard, the need to be right. So I feel like, yeah, it starts early. It starts when we're little girls. And I'm not saying I didn't have the need to be right even before that, but I know the attitude that came along with it that men don't like. For me, I think that started when I was about in 5th grade, and I had an example that wasn't part of my home or anything. So I wrote down the need to be right, and just like Kevin said, and then we kind of fine tune that in high school, college, and moving on up. And so, so I noticed in high school, as someone who didn't go to high school in the United States and was abroad and came back at a high school age, I noticed even more. And I was like, oh, this is how we doing it. And so I had to kind of catch on. So for me, my kind of aspect is just looking at for different levels of my life, how the females around me act, and me just trying to either imitate or do what they do and kind of assimilate. So all I'm saying is the example that Kevin gave us, what he was saying is that we don't have the normacy. We don't see the normal of it. And even as someone like myself who did have the normacy at home, I could see I was like, but this is what everybody else is doing, how the influence of that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, for those who don't have the example, to see how, even though this is how your friends act or whatever, and this is how you're supposed to act, the normacy of apologizing and not having to be right, or saying, you know what, I'm in the wrong. Like I would see my mom and dad, and then somebody was in the wrong and they say, you know what, I was wrong, or this wasn't the right, or whatever. I would see that example. But if family members, cousins, and friends who didn't have that, I could see why they'd be so combative as adults or as young women, because they didn't have that example to go by, to admit fault, to say I'm wrong, or to stop and just say, let me pause and start over, or whatever you need to do, like Kevin was saying. So for me, this one, even for myself, the need to be right is very strong. It's kind of like he said with the force. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And if you're on the good side or the bad, whichever one you tend to go down, you can either let it continue to get worse, or you can do something about it. So that's how I took it, and that's how I'm going to answer that question.
All right, thank you so much, Lisa. So, Hermisha, I am coming to you. Our first question tonight is, of the shame, insults, guilt, and need to be right, which is the hardest to overcome?
Ooh, this was so good, y'all. This was so good. When I was listening to this one, I remember when I sat down with Kevin, and he found out that I was a clinician. He's like, oh, you a therapist? I was like, yes, sir. He's like, in private practice, or because I used to work at a large hospital. And I said, I branched off into private practice. And I can tell in his heart, he has this discerning spirit where he could, Kevin was so good at just reading people and reading, looking beyond the words. So I was just remembering that when I was listening to this message and how he was handling the callers. But nonetheless, it made me remember that conversation. And I chuckle because when he came up with the acronym, as a clinician, I'm just like, wow, that's pretty solid, And so for me, looking at my life, and even in my time as I was married, I realized, a lot of my unhealthiness was a lot of guilt. That's how it manifested for me. And it was very subtle, very, very subtle. Well, where I would say something like, you sure you're going to go that way? Or do you really like that haircut you got? I wrote some of the things down, just kind of causing doubt. And when I look back, I'm like, yeah, that was a subtle way of almost like guilting someone. And as I was reflecting on this now, it really comes down to not feeling emotionally safe or secure enough to just say what you mean and mean what you say at the end of the day. Right. And so thinking about that's the one that stood out to me, the guilt, and it's unconscious. You can mean well, rather than me just saying, oh, you sure you're gonna go that way? You really want to eat that? Rather than being passive about it, I've learned to just shoot straight with grace and honesty. Right. And so that's what I would say. That's one of the things that I had to overcome. And it's been growth for me. It's been interesting. Mostly, I don't know if y'all know, I'm a Delta. So my line name, they give you a line name when you cross over. And I chuckle because they look at how you are, your personality while you're online. And my line name was straightforward. And I was like, I'll take it because that's growth. Instead of being passive and beating around the bush, be straightforward, speak the truth in love. Right. And so that's something I had to learn to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hermisha. We love you all. When we have a special guest, I've got to shout out Chantel Simone. Everybody put Chantel in the chat. You all know she was one of the first guests that we had here on the Wives Club. So near and dear to this community. So thank you so much for stopping by. All right. So we're going to move into our second question. And the question is in the agenda. I'll take a stab at it. The question is, have you ever used sign language? And again, that's shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. Have you ever used sign language in the past, and what caused the change or the outcome? So, again, we have to be honest here and talk about how we bumped our head and skinned our knee, because I think that's what's lacking in our community. The older women aren't always honest. And if I'm being honest, I can say I use the guilt tactic. And the way it would manifest for me, you all know me well enough to know I'm usually a very jovial person, very happy, very smiley. That is my natural disposition. I'm like that 99% of the time. But when I wouldn't get my way, kind of embarrassed to say, I would pout. And not in the way that we think of a little girl, kind of like with my lip out, but I wouldn't bring my best self. I'm sure I'm not alone, but I would give those yes, no, okay, those one word answers as a way of signifying I'm not happy right now. And what have we heard? If mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. That's immature and it's inappropriate. And so the question is, what was the change or outcome? The change for me was maturity, not only in my years, but also the way that I conduct myself. That's not the best way to communicate if something is bothering you. I've had to learn that. And the outcome, ladies, be careful. I'll date myself, but that old nursery rhyme or that old story about the boy who cried wolf, if you overuse and overextend yourself like a muscle in the body, after a while, it'll get weaker, which means you won't get that same response. People will be like, there she goes again. You'll be all right. And that's not what we want, definitely from our men. So I would say for me, the sign language that I used in the past was guilt. All right, AV, I'm coming to you. The question is, have you ever used sign language in the past, and what was the change or outcome?
Oh yeah, I think we all have. I mean, I would be wrong if I sat here and said that I didn't do this in the past. We all have as women, right? I'm going to focus on shame because as someone that was focused on dating in this modern environment, which can be interesting if you're not tactical and careful, I used to do this thing on first dates, which was bad. Not even first dates, getting to know someone. The first few dates, I would look for anything, any small thing, just a microscope, put these guys under a microscope. And when I would find something, I'd be like, all right, that's it. That's the shame. And then I'm out. And it was just not working. And it was just like, oh my God. you're cutting people off without understanding male nature. One person I dated for a few months, really solid guy, investment banker in Boston, great looking guy. You know, he's a few years older than me at the time. But, when you really listen to Kevin, he talks a lot about men in process. This guy was in that age of being a man in process. He still wanted to have fun, you know? I didn't really understand male nature well back then. And so, when he's like, hey, I'm going to DR on this trip. And I'm like, oh, okay, we've been dating for 6 months. You're going to DR. Right? But not really understanding male nature and not really giving him a chance. But I would hear things like that and instantly cut out. Right? So I would say that that's almost a shame tactic. You're shaming people for being who they are. You're shaming people for being in process. Maybe they're not ready yet. And whose fault is that really? Is it the guy's fault, or is it you for not picking correctly? So, it was also something that helped me um, think a little bit differently about things. And I bring that example up not to put anybody's private information out there, but I bring that example up because that was the example that brought me to Kevin. That was a situation that brought me to Kevin. And when I sat down and talked to Kevin, and I have my Kevin notes here from those discussions just to make sure that all this is fresh when I talk to you guys about it. He looked at me and said in the camera, he's just like, "Oh, that wasn't a husband. Why'd you even date him?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He was just like, "He's not ready. Why are you dating people that are close in age with you? You're dating your peers. Stop doing that." Never thought about it like that. But Kevin was right. He's just like, this guy has a great job. He's just starting his process. Um, you're a little bit more farther along. Maybe you should start looking at an age frame that's a little bit more older where these guys have already had their fun and they want to settle down. So it was such valuable advice, but I wanted to bring that to you guys because I was going out and shaming the person for being who they are when that wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. So in retrospect, I would say if anybody, women especially, if you're out here with that mindset, it's not worth it, you're going to waste your time, please don't do it. Please don't do it. Don't do it. That's all I have for that one, Meg.
I'm waiting for the X to come up on the screen. Like, what was that game show? Oh my goodness. All right, Lisa, I am coming to you. The question is, have you ever used sign language in the past, and what caused the change or outcome?
Yes, I have. I use guilt on my husband, my poor husband at the time. I would say things to him like, you don't love me or you don't care. And that would just um, I would just say it all the time. And what I realized is that it wasn't about him. It was about like things I was insecure about, things I was guilty about, I think at the time, because I've been married to my husband 17 years and we didn't have a daughter until 12 years into our marriage. So I felt guilty about, my health and children and stuff like that. So what I learned in therapy, and therapy is what brought on the change, is that these are things I was holding on inside. I wasn't expressing properly. And the way I would express it is be like, you don't care. You don't love me. You're doing whatever. And I had to learn that there's, and I had to learn to express myself with the real reason, not these made up reasons that I'm putting out to him. So that helped me stop doing those tactics, stop saying stuff like that. But I was really in denial about it too. And, denial is a big part of my journey because when you're in denial about a lot of stuff, you don't realize that you're doing this. So the therapy and working through that and having to almost be made to do it to realize that was a really big part of what made me realize that I need to change or do something or I was going to lose my husband. So for me, it was the guilt, and therapy is what brought on the change and made me realize that this is not the way to go about it and that I need to be more open, and that the hurt and the the guilt and the insecurities I was feeling shouldn't be thrown on my husband in that way. So that was the one for me of the signs that I was in my past.
All right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. Hermisha, I am coming to you. The question is, have you ever used sign language in the past, and what caused the change or outcome?
Yeah, so I talked about the guilt that I would unconsciously use, and I would phrase it in a question, but looking back at it, I just wasn't being truthful. It was manipulative, really, where I'm causing doubt in my spouse at the time, and that doesn't give a man a confidence to lead you, and so. Um, but let's see. In addition to guilt, as I reflect on this, I never called it when he said the need to be right. I didn't think it was the need to be right. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, it was it's almost like this incessant, like this, you just, you have to be right, essentially. Or, um, you're adamant about your point, if you will. Right. And so for me, how that manifested at the time, it was more of, I wanted to prove that I wanted to appear right, because, I struggle with a lot of criticism, and, I didn't want the person to say, gotcha, because then I would feel the shame. So then the unconscious defense is, I got to make sure that I'm right, because you're going to come for me, and you're going to come for me hard. Right. So it's almost like this guarded disposition that I realized it's very subtle, and so, um, that's one thing I would say. I'm trying to think of more of a concrete example. It just was avoiding, being blamed. For me, that was a big deal, because, and I'm trying to be respectful of my, last relationship or former, spouse. But I can just focus on me. I just realized I had a lot of guards up, and, when they would, you know, call something out, I was just like, no, that's not true. No, no, you know. And I just, looking back at that, I don't like the woman that I was, essentially, y'all, at the end of the day. And we don't want to be that type of woman. You want to take responsibility. You want to own your stuff 100%. Even it hurts. It hurts so bad, but you want to learn that you have to humble yourself, even if somebody's has ill intent by doing all this all the time, and you're feeling the blame and the shame and the insecurity, and you're feeling beat down. You still have a responsibility to own your part in it. And that's something I had to look at, rather than, well, what about what you did? Nuh-uh. And then you go this tit for tat. So I've learned that at the end of the day, I can only own my piece. And if somebody's pointing something out to me, I have to sit with that. I have to own it. It stings, but it's humbling. And that doesn't mean the other person's not responsible. We're just responsible for our part. And so I look back at that, and I realized that I was fighting that because of my own shame and my own sort of like insecurity at the time, when I really just I should have been more, had a softer heart, and there's reasons for all that. But at the end of the day, if somebody's calling something out in you, just own it, as painful as it is, and not deflect, and not try to prove your point, is what I'm trying to get at. And so that's something that as I'm sitting with that, it's painful, because it's kind of like, ugh, you don't want to see that in yourself, but it's there. And it's a heart issue at the end of the day. And we have to be willing to see those heart issues and release it. And for my women out there that are faith-based women, to repent, to confess it and repent, because that's how the Lord kind of cleanses that part of your heart, and softens it. So that's what I would say.
Oh my goodness, that was so, so powerful. Thank you for the transparency. I love this. I love this space. We're going to keep going down on our agenda, but I did see a question that I just want to address, because I know we have new people watching us all the time. So hello, Samuel. And your question is this like ASL, meaning American Sign Language? No. So we are reviewing and giving our take to a Kevin Samuels episode. The link is in the description, and sign language is an acronym. S for shame, I for insults. What comes next? G for guilt, and N for the need to be right. All right. So I just wanted to make sure we were crystal clear. Thank you for the question. Okay, ladies, the third question on our agenda is, why is the need to be right keeping women single? And I'll take a stab at this one. It is what Hermisha just said. Every hill is the hill that we want to die on. And that is not a relationship. I'm thinking about this episode, and if you all listen to it, there was a woman towards the end who was just so dead set on making her point. She had fault in how a relationship ended. The man had fault in how the relationship ended. But she wanted to make sure that Kevin knew everything he did. And he tried multiple times for her to realize, okay, but how you responded is not helpful. Because where are you now? You're single 2 years later, looking and still talking about that. He's moved on and in another relationship. So I always try to think about the long game. Do we want to win the battle, or do we want to win the war? So to answer the question, why is the need to be right keeping women single? I saw a comment, I'll try and find it. Luke Hazley put it up there. A masculine man is not going to put up with it. Full stop. They're just not. Either we get on their program or we find another program to get on. That's just it. So the man that you want, the man who has vision, the man that's a leader, is going to have an opinion, and he's only going to say maybe once, twice if you're lucky. So I think what happens, like Kevin said, a lot of times we found the one and we blew it. So that's why I'm a huge advocate. This time around, nope, you're right. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Submit with gladness. All right, AV, I am coming to you. The question is, why is the need to be right keeping women single?
I think it's just part of it is control, right? People want to hang on to control. People are afraid of control sometimes. But to your point, going back to submission, sometimes letting go of control is the ultimate form of submission, right? And it's great. It's great because when you can show somebody that you're not argumentative, that you're not going to argue them down, that you're not going to be combative or have issues with them. Um, it also depends on how the person is. Are you comfortable with conflict? I feel like right now a lot of people are having issues because we're, as a society, some women are a little bit too comfortable with conflict, immediately saying what's on their mind in inappropriate situations, things like that, without taking a step back to reflect, without really being thoughtful before they have conversations with people. Sometimes you just need to take a beat before you respond, right? Um, I will also say this, it's so funny because I was kind of helping, the KS family with things on the channel. And there was a clip that comes to mind where he was talking about how these days masculine women can be like they are competitors to men. Men look at that because when they're in almost these like competing conversations or competing scenarios, men walk away from those scenarios drained. So I think as women, we just need to really look at the energy we're putting forth to certain things, the energy we're putting forth, especially when we're having conversations and discussions with our men, interactions with our men. Who wants to leave a situation with a man feeling drained? They already do so much out there in the world. And if we want to be their peace, the number one thing that we don't want to do is cause a situation where they can feel drained. So, as we are kind of talking about this, and if I'm thinking about some of the issues, at least that I see in my generation, but also just in modern dating, things that I'm guilty of myself, and admittedly sharing that with you guys is these are all learning experiences. And to Maggie's point, I totally agree with submission. And I just think, the big issue that so many people don't see is that you might not notice it, but some of the things we say and our actions can come off as competitive. And you don't want to do that in the sphere of relationships. So that's what I have for this one.
Thank you so much, AB. All right, Lisa, I am coming to you. The question is, why is the need to be right keeping women single?
Like I said before, the need to be right, they're strong with the dark side of the force. But I really think, because Kevin mentioned that in this show, but I really think the need to be right is keeping women single because men don't want to argue with you all the time. They don't. What it is what it is. What they say needs to go. Everybody can't be the captain of the ship. Everybody can't stir the ship. And if you've been so used to doing that as a single woman, that's going to be hard to give up. So for me, I think that's part of the fear and the not wanting to do that is causing them to stay single and turn away from the relationship or destroy it altogether or whatever they do. Let's see what else. Don't stir the ship. And in this one, I really like if you're faith-based, he kept saying, you report up, man reports to God, women reports to husband, women reports to children, in that order. And he kept saying, who do you look up to? In your job, you report up to someone. So for me, what really rang true is like, if you're faith-based, he was giving you the order. And if that's what you believe, you're not following it. I think that's another way that he was trying to explain and break it down as simple as possible why why the women continue to be single with that need to be right, because you don't want to answer to anybody, but you have to answer to somebody, or you're going to be alone. So that's my answer for that one.
Thank you so much. All right, Hermisha, I am coming to you. The question is, why is the need to be right keeping women single?
If we peel it back, and I think I might have seen it, somebody already called it. It's fear at the end of the day. And when I look back at my behavior in my marriage, I was afraid. I didn't trust my husband. I just stopped trusting him. At the end of the day, that's what it came to. So if we're adamant about this need to be right, then we don't trust who's leading us. You want to win the argument because you feel like your way is the right way. At the end of the day, you don't trust that they're going to lead you the right way. It's not an excuse, but it's a fear-based approach, and it's unhealthy. Rather than saying, baby, I'm afraid. I got to be honest, I'm scared. I know that you're the head, but I'm terrified right now because I'm struggling with your decision. But I'm going to trust and I'm going to hush. Trust and hush. I like that. Right? I didn't say that. I just was like, I don't know. You sure you want to go that way? Because GPS says it's just if you take that street, it's even in the minute stuff, right? Or in the big things that ultimately you're communicating to him that you don't trust him. And then for us as women, that also communicates disrespect. Because for us to submit, we got to trust them. And if we don't submit, that's disrespectful. So basically, y'all, I was, I look back at myself and I'm like, I could have handled a lot of things a little much better, which is why I reached out, to Kevin, because I'm just like, Kevin, I don't know what to do. And he with me. He was like, psh, 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 hush, stop delegating. He said, let the grass grow. Just turn the lights. Don't do nothing. He told me, I never forget this, y'all. He told me, take the battery out the the little beeping, the fire, what is it? The single woman's detective sign, the beep. He said, he told me to take the battery out so it can beep. because I was over there, I was doing everything, I was leading the ship rather than following. And so he said, take the battery out. He said, let that stuff just beep. I'm not going to say what happened, but let's just say I just left it alone. But at the end of the day, you all, it comes back to fear, and being able to trust at the end of the day. And I think us as women, we're very proud. We're very arrogant. We got some big egos, y'all. We look all cute and dressed up, but we got some big egos. And, you know, we have to know when to just humble ourselves and say, you know what? I could speak up here and challenge and question, but you know what? I'm going to stay silent. And your way may be the fastest way, for example, on a road. But do you necessarily have to say that? I've learned what I do now, I just pray. I'm just like, Lord, show them. You show them. You get them, Lord. Get them, Lord. Not like that, but you know what I mean.
Unmute myself. Thank you so much, Hermisha. I love the transparency here. And oh, it just warms my heart because I think this is what's so needed in our community. All right. So let us continue on. Next to last question. Why are modern women emotionally unavailable? And I think on this one, it ties back to what Hermisha said with the fear. But the problem is what Kevin's episodes showed me, and he talked about it in this episode, it's not necessarily even a fear that's your own experience. That programming of don't let that man, or don't trust him, or I don't know what he wants, that whole Order 66, I didn't get it, but I see it. And you all know, in this episode, it was heartbreaking when Kevin said how in our community, he doesn't see happy, smiling women. Everybody's got a point to prove. Everybody wants to argue you down. Everybody's got a chip on their shoulder. And what struck me in this episode, he talked about how he took some of the men in training to, I believe it was a suburb somewhere in Texas, in a different community, and just had them listen to the conversations around them. And these weren't wealthy people, just average working class, middle class people, but just happy, talking about their family, talking about plans. Why is it if we as women are the ones who bring the culture and set that thermostat in the home, why are we so emotionally closed up? Now, this is not an area for me. I'm a little bit on the other side. I'm a little extra, but I do notice this. And it makes me very sad when, women who share my reflection, their initial stance is a bad experience. And then you got to scale that wall to show them that you are someone that's trustworthy. So we definitely have an opportunity here. But to answer the question, why are modern women emotionally unavailable? It's a fear. And I think it's a misplaced fear of I'm going to get you before you get me. All right, AV, I'm coming to you. The question is, why are modern women emotionally unavailable?
Now, this is a tough one, because I think that a lot of people have different stances on this. So I'm going to answer this one as I'm not sure. And I'm going to leave it there because I think, it's going to be different for many different perspectives. But for this one, I'm going to actually be honest and just say I'm not sure.
All right, that's fair. Thank you. Lisa, I'm coming to you. The question is, why are modern women emotionally unavailable?
I think they're emotionally unavailable is because they're tired. They're tired and they're angry. For one, they're tired because you get out of high school, you either chasing the bag, or you going to college, or you trying to be the entrepreneur, or get all these degrees and stuff. So you don't have time, and you're angry because in getting the bag, getting the education, and all that. Well, not everybody, but some people, they're doing it all by themselves. They're not doing it with a partner. They're just I got to do it. I got to get it done. And even if you're a mother or whatever the issue is, you're doing it by yourself if you're not married or you don't have a partner helping you out. So, and I can tell you, as someone who's had to do stuff alone, when I get tired and angry, I get a little crazy. And I see people out in stores and airports and stuff, and I can see why they're acting a certain way. Because, you're doing everything. And I'm like, man, if she had a dude or her husband or someone helping her, she wouldn't be in that situation. She could calm down and let him, or he could take over. He could be doing doing it the masculine way or however the man would handle it. I see that with my husband. Because a lot of times when we would go on trips, I would get mad at something and I'd be like, well, but I don't need to be right. If I let my husband take care of it, he's the one doing it. So that takes it off my shoulders and I can just remain calm and do my feminine thing. Let him do all that. But for me, I think, working and what did Kevin say? He said they're angry and angry gets stuff done. And he was right. Angry does get stuff done. But I'd rather that stuff get done by my man than me doing it, because I think what Kevin always used to say, something is for shoulders, not hips. I see all these women putting all this on their hips and it's driving them crazy. It's making them mad. It's making them tired. And a lot of what we see out in the community or online, the negative stuff, for me personally, I think this is maybe what's causing it in a lot of situations. But to AV's point, for everybody, depending on what you've been around or your environment, it might be different. But for me, what I see comes from tiredness and anger. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, so Hermisha, I am coming to you. The question is, why are modern women emotionally unavailable?
Oh, that's a big one. When I was thinking about this question, the one word that popped in my mind was, well, two words: cut off. I think we are emotionally cut off. We're cut off from ourselves. I don't, each person's different, but for me, I can be very task oriented, even in this season of my life, being on the other side of things. I'm working 12-hour days, believe it or not. I'm running businesses. I have two little ones. I'm on the go, go, go. And it's easy for me to forget about me, because I'm pulled in many different directions. And I think that a lot of us don't stop and realize the power of a pause and just checking in with yourself and saying or asking yourself, how am I doing? How do I feel? And if we can't do that, then we're definitely not going to be able to be emotionally present for anybody else. So that was what came up for me. Just cut off. We're emotionally cut off. We're either stretched in our education or schooling or our work or whatnot. Now, I'm in a season where I have to work these many hours on the other side of things as I represent as a former wife. And that's just the season I'm in. So I have to be very intentional to pause and process. I've learned that where I'm like, I just need a moment to process, to be able to name what I need. I need to process. I need to check in. I need to pray. I need to get clear on what's going on with Hermisha. So that's what I would say. We're cut off from ourselves. And the other thing is, if we're cut off from ourselves, we're not practicing discernment. Discernment is like a muscle. You have to practice it all the time. And it's been able to have a level of situational awareness to see the big picture, to make right decisions, right? And so if we're cut off from ourselves, how are we even making healthy decisions? Because we're in this sort of swimming in the sea of cortisol, if you will, stress, right? And so one thing I would say, if I can give something tangible, is this acronym called HALT. And I didn't come up with this. It was in a Bible study, and I was like, I'm gonna use that. I don't know who said it. It was something I was watching online, and I love the acronym. So if you're in this if you're experiencing something like this, you just need a pause. Don't make decisions out of the state. It's halt. If you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're lonely and you're tired, you need to halt. You need to pause. You need to check in with yourself. You just need to pause to process. And that's a way for us to practice more emotional intelligence, emotional attunement, to be able to be discerning, to know what your next steps are going to be. So that's what I would say. We're cut off, and that's one solution to not be cut off, and go from there.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Hermisha. All right, so we are coming up on our final question. So we will take one more lap around and the ladies will respond. If you all have questions for us, you can put a Q in front of your comment and type it, and then we will bring up you all's questions and I will drop the link. If you want to come talk to us, you can be camera on or camera off. It's totally up to you. All right, ladies, the last question is, do you have any lessons learned from the callers on this episode of Kevin's show? And again, this was 4 signs of a low value woman. And there were a couple callers that did stand out to me in this episode. I believe one was a young Muslim lady who was divorced from her husband. And she realized, on the other side of the relationship, that the problem was her. And what was just so sad for me to hear is when she said, I'm not built for this, like this dating environment. Ladies, I went through some of the same things. I was married, and then I would remember hearing usually other corporate women talking about their salacious experiences and, you got to get out here and we're doing this and that and going here. And you think you're really missing out on something. 6 months after the divorce, I was in a relationship. When I heard her say that, and then Kevin actually said, you don't want to be out here. It's not good for you ladies. That was kind of like warning, right? We saw those X's AV soundboard. So that stood out to me. So listen, young ladies, I always try to give, tangible things that you can do. Consider the source. When someone is talking about how great they're or trying to give you advice and how great it is, look at their life and then say, would I trade places with this person? Or are they telling me something that they don't even want to do? And then lastly, the last caller on this show, if you all didn't hear it, this was a woman who was in a 2-year relationship with a man, a good man, her words. She didn't share this detail, but she didn't nurture her relationship. And ladies, that is our job. We are the ones that are supposed to water it, all right? So we're the support system. Our men are out there slaying and protecting and providing. And she took her eye off the prize. It came out later that she went to, I believe it was nursing school, and there's nothing wrong with school. We all have our pieces of paper. But, her man sought attention elsewhere. And she did probably the cardinal sin. You go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. And she went through his phone, and it became this whole disaster where she threw the phone at him. She's arguing with him. She's calling the other woman. It was a mess. It was a complete and total mess. And Kevin was saying, I am not excusing what he did, but look at how you handled this. Oh yeah, but no, let me tell you what he did. But what did you do? Instead of saying, hey, can we work on this? You lost it. Yeah, but he was wrong for it. It was a case study in lack of accountability. And the punchline is that he's often in another relationship and she's still single, calling Kevin to complain about what happened 2 years ago. So that was a huge takeaway. Again, ladies, do you want to win the battle or do you want to win the war? Relationships are not perfect. Things happen. Life can be hard, but life can also be very sweet if you prioritize relationships instead of having to be right and get your point across. All right. AV, I'm going to come to you for this last question. It is, were there any lessons learned from the callers on this Kevin episode?
Yeah, I think there's always listens in every single show. And I think one thing that kind of resonated with this one, oftentimes we all hear Kevin when he says to folks like, don't overtalk me. Let's be respectful. Let's have a conversation. But that goes to attentive listening, right? And there's really a few things that come to mind when it comes to attentive listening. And I think, a lot of women call in because they genuinely do want some help. Some are a little bit more receptive to that help than others. But if you are calling because hey, this is one of the biggest creators that's speaking on this topic. This is also a man that is, in his 50s and has a lot of life experience. Let's be respectful. A couple things that come to mind: paying attention, right? Paying attention to the conversation and being present in that conversation. Another thing is withholding judgment. Many times we can have like our own experiences in life, and we already have preconceived judgments. But I think the thing that I learned, even working with Kevin, is having an open mind. Some of the callers from this particular show did have an open mind. It took a little bit to get there. But some of them ended up having that, right? There's also like reflecting and clarifying. So if there's something that you get wrong, being open enough to think on it, because sometimes he tells people, he'll end conversations and say, hey, think about that for a little bit. Or if there's something you don't understand, ask me more questions, or let me ask you some more questions so I can understand. Kevin does it, right? So that's also important. But ultimately, this comes with providing feedback and being open to receiving that feedback, but also applying that feedback. And then lastly is just being empathetic, like empathizing with what you're learning, empathizing with what you're hearing. I think sometimes when I hear these shows, and it's a mixed bag because Kevin would talk to, on average, at least 13 people per show, right? Sometimes a little less, sometimes more. Um, 5 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesdays, Thursdays. He has spoken to thousands of people. So, these are different perspectives, hundreds of different perspectives. So when you really hear this, I think the main thing, and one thing I really gleaned from this particular show, is we can all be better active listeners. But those are just some thoughts that come to mind on how to do that.
Thank you so much, AB. All right, Lisa, I am coming to you. The last question is, any lessons learned from the callers on Kevin's show?
Yes, I again, I live for these shows when the young ladies call in, or not even the young ladies, anybody calls in. And one thing I noticed about this show, that everything, just about everything he said in his monologue, the first half an hour, is what showed up at the end, or examples, or just the need to be right. All the signs showed up in the ladies that called in at the end of the show. And I thought that was just so on point. He couldn't have planned it better, if you ask me. But the one young lady I noticed, the young lady with the Louis Vuitton bonnet, who I think she was 22 and dental student, and he was asking her about, did she live with her? Was she raised by her mom? And she was. And her mom, she even admitted that her mom raised her to be an independent woman. So we just sat there and watched Order 66 live and direct, word for word. She was, everything that he said about that order and how it's set up and how they're trained, it was just like verbatim. And she still didn't get it at the end. She was just like, I think he had to let her go because she just wasn't getting it. It just wasn't clicking. So that young lady for me was the perfect example of Order 66. As y'all can tell, I love Star Wars. So when Kevin was bringing up all that stuff, I was just all about it. I was just like, yes, I understand. And let's see. And if you look at the comments of this video, even like a month ago, there's women on there saying, I see myself. I read comment after comment. If I read over 200 that were just, I see what he's talking about. This was me, or this was my mom, or this is the kind of mom I had, or grandma, or this is what I was taught. And read through those comments. It is a legacy. It is to Kevin's legacy what the women in the comments are saying. Like, they recognize this. And all I want to say is that if you're out there, ladies, and this one really hit you, or you one of those people in the comments saying, I understand now, this, let us know. Reach out to us because we like to hear from you. But I enjoyed this episode. It had so many gems in it and the Star Wars stuff for me. And so that was my lessons learned from the callers on this show.
All right, thank you so much. And Maggie, I see you in the back, but we are going to wrap it up with Hermisha as far as the prepared questions. Hermisha, any lessons learned from the callers on this show?
Lots of lessons. One thing that stood out to me, caller after caller, Kevin is, I think low key, he should have been a therapist. That's where I was going with it. My initial point. I think I might have went on a tangent. But what I was getting at is when I had my talk with him, he was very fascinated about that, which makes sense why he promoted that on his show. Get into therapy because you need somebody objectively looking at you. And here's a secret. The best therapists are the ones also on the other side of the couch, come from a therapist. The best ones are also in therapy themselves. Okay. So, question to ask your therapist. Do you believe in therapy? Do you go to therapy too? Right? Because we also need someone looking at us. So I would say, when I was listening to this call, there was one woman there who called in. She was upset that he posted an example of what a 5'2" woman and what 170 pounds just looks like. He didn't judge it. It was all factual. He just says, this is what 170 pounds looks like on a 5'2" woman. And she was clearly defensive and triggered. And when we say triggered, what that means is something's coming up in the present that's reminding us of the past, essentially. And so he walked her through all of that. And at the end of the day, it turns out that it had everything to do with her, even though she was projecting and blaming him. I'm saying that because the lesson for all of us is, what I gather out of that is that we've all gone through some form of trauma, period. And a lot of this stuff is learned behavior. And anytime you see yourself getting defensive, the work is, are you aware that you're getting defensive? That's the work. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, most of the times, we need an objective person to be able to see that, oftentimes a professional, to say, hey, that's called a defense mechanism. When you're blame shifting, when you're projecting, when you're assuming, when you're passive aggressive, when you're guilting, shaming, and you need to be right, that's called a defense mechanism. And so the thing is, the question would be, what are you trying to protect, or what threat of danger do you feel like you're feeling threatened from? If we can get to that and resolve that, I think a lot of us will feel more open to just receive correction and see things as they are, rather than see things from our past experience. Because that had nothing to do. He literally just posted a woman, and it was very factual. So that's what I would say. The biggest lesson in all of this, we are not responsible for what happened to us, but we are responsible for what we do with what we've gone through, period. And that's what I would say about that.
Oh, so good. Okay, ladies, we have made it through the agenda. Very rich conversation and very honest. So thank you all so much. So we do have someone in the back. I'm going to bring her up. Again, if you all have any questions, you can put a Q in front of them, or I'll drop the link again. But you all know her and you love her. We've got Maggie and her in the stream. Hello, Maggie. Thank you so much for being here. Please.
Hi, ladies.
Hello. What would you like to share or ask about shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right?
Yeah, Miss Maggie, thank you. I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first time, guys, seeing you together. Thank you for doing this for us, especially for women. We're trying to be better. We really appreciate your effort. You are showing every day on this Friday from your time to give us this valuable information from your experience and from Kevin show as well. And then I'll say thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Wow, just a compliment. Well, I will receive it and thank you. Mickey, we'll just do a quick lap. AV, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
No, Meki, you're always us. You've been supporting so many of us for forever. So it's always good to see you. Always dancing, right? We know the dancing is happening. But
I'm
all
trying. I
right,
don't know
all
what
right.
to do.
There you go. But I'm happy that
Thank
you're
you.
receiving this information and finding it valuable because that's really what we set out to do when we started this.
Yes.
So I'm happy that you're
Thank
enjoying
you.
it.
Thank you. Welcome back. It's been a while since I see you. Thank
It
you.
has been, yeah.
So I have one question for you guys.
Come on.
So, so all of this, the sign language is gonna be like connected to how we communicate with our man in relationship. So I was like, I do all those for in different situations, right? So I'm trying to be better to communicate my feelings in a calm manner, but choosing picking the right time for like your partner, you know, when will be the right time to communicate, especially Hermitia was mentioning her fear, whatever it's bothering me in the situation, what is the right time, and then how did you start those conversations? That would be my question.
I love, love, love this question. So I will take a
Mhm.
stab at it and then we'll let the ladies give their take on it. And I actually saw a comment in here from Randy. I'll try and bring it up. So,
Okay.
yes, this is the real world, right? Sometimes, we as women, one of the ways that we're different is that we are emotional, right? We are emotional creatures. But what I work very hard on is to not have an emotional response. So just
Hmm.
because I'm feeling something, that doesn't mean that this is the right time to say it. Randy had a comment in here about journaling, but what I would try to
Hmm.
do is allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling and then find a way to either rephrase it in a way that a man would understand. Men listen for a problem to solve. And we
Okay.
women, sometimes we just want to vent, we just want to get it out. So I may have to
Hmm.
do that over here with a trusted girlfriend or a therapist or in my journal. But then I try to boil down my conversation. When I walk away from this conversation, what do I want to be different? And I lead with that in the conversation. As far
Okay.
as timing, what I try to do is, Kevin often said that we have to study our men. So their cycles and their rhythms, and if they need to decompress when they come through the door, that is not the time to jump on them and say, "What about this thing?" I would ask. If we don't know, we can ask. And I would say, "Hey, dinner's ready. Go ahead and relax, but I'd like to talk," and I would time box it. If you have about 5 minutes or 15 minutes, let me know when would be a good time to talk, or can we talk tonight before bed or tomorrow morning? But I would crystallize it in a way so that he understands I'm asking for something. I'm looking for something to be different. Please let me know when it's a good time for you. And I made sure that I do all the things to put him in a good headspace first. So that would be my answer. AV, I'm going to come to you. How would you answer Mickey's question about how to better communicate?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Meki. Two things kind of come to mind. I love what Maggie was saying about taking the time to think about things and not have an immediate emotional response. I tend to, yeah, and it took me a little bit to do this. Lately, I've kind of transitioned from journaling and taking like reflection time. So if that means like I take a walk for an hour before I respond to something, or I really just take the time to think about something. But I always wait until I am positive about the thing that I want to talk about, right? So I don't, even if it's like a negative thing, I always wait until I am fully in a positive mood about this thing. I'm ready to have a loving conversation about this thing, whether it would be with a relationship, a family member, a friend. I always wait until I'm at that point. And I'll be honest, guys, I'm a spitfire. Sometimes I mean, sometimes it's a little crazy, but I know that about myself. Kevin always said self-awareness is sexy, and you need to know that about yourself. So for me, I know, hey, if I'm in that moment, not the best time. When I can smile and talk about the situation, that's when we have the green light. So that's what I would encourage you to do.
Thank you
Okay,
so
I
much,
accept that.
indeed. All right, Lisa, I'm going to come to you. What advice would you give to Maggie about having a difficult conversation?
I would say for myself, what has worked for me is, I guess, along the lines of being self-aware, knowing when you're upset, knowing when you're emotional, um, and for me, just knowing I need to walk away, calm down, and might take a half an hour, might take an hour, it might take a whole day, um, before I need to engage, or not even engage, but have a conversation about whatever the issue is or the concern is. And the other thing I would say with my husband is, this might not work for everybody, but if they're willing to go to therapy, like couples therapy, and what our therapist told us at the time was like, you know, like my husband knows now that when I'm really upset, he's not going to deal with me. He might even say to me, "I know you're upset, so I'm not going to talk to you right now." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm upset." So we both know that, and I know when, like Maggie was saying, when he's off of work or he just got give him time to come down from the day if I have a problem or an issue or anything. So I'm just not going to just throw it on him that just have to get home for work or something or have something stressful already. So I think I guess what therapists kind of taught us is knowing when it is time to present that kind of stuff. And that was the good thing about, knowing your love languages and all the stuff that they do in couples therapy. It may not apply for everybody. You take what you need, and if it doesn't work for y'all, just move on with something else. But that has been working for us. Me knowing um, when I need to step away and take time, and him also knowing that I have issues with that, knowing that you're angry or you're upset, you're not where you need to be. So we're going to wait, because sometimes I do need a little extra help, but he's supportive of it, and we're making things work. So if that is y'all's situation, but that helps for us.
Great advice, Lisa. Okay, Hermisha, what advice would you give to Meki as far as having those difficult conversations?
Yeah, I think we're all kind of echoing the same thing. Hi, Maggie. Side note, I love
Hi,
it. She's just dancing and cooking on her channel. Yes, I've
I'm
watched.
doing everything to get your attention, guys.
So, I would go, the timing, we're all echoing the timing, and because sometimes we can be, not sometimes, most of the time, we can be very impulsive. We want to get it out, right? I know I'm like that. Let's just resolve it. Can we just, because I don't like the anxiety, and I feel all that energy. Can we just talk about it now and get it over with, right? But we're talking about pausing and reflecting and all the things. So I will go back to the acronym I mentioned. If you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're lonely and you're tired, that's typically not the best time to have those types of conversations. Get something to eat, go for a walk if you're angry. If you're lonely, notice that. And if you're tired, take a nap, and then go back to the conversation and uh, initiate the conversation when you know you're centered, essentially, right? You have to be centered and self-controlled before you enter the conversation, because if you're entering it very frazzled, you're not going to be mindful or discerning. You're just going to be letting stuff fly out your mouth. And you're not going to be very in tune with how the person's receiving you, because you're just in this rush state. So that's kind of what I would recommend. That's worked for me. And that's something that for me, I have to stop and pray. I really, really do, because I can feel so much. And I'm like, I just need to stop and just pray. But essentially, the HALT acronym alone could help.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, ladies. You just point out a very valuable points for me. So I'm just like Avi, like I have a sharp mouth. If I start talking when I'm mad, I will hurt you to the bone. So I have to keep quiet, like at least, like I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour to just get to myself, and then I will start talking. So that's what I'm doing right now. I will tell people, I am mad. I don't want to speak anything to you right now. if I say something, it doesn't go well. So that's what I'm trying to practice. So I know myself, like self-awareness is sexy. So I'm trying to do those things. But when it comes to relationship, sometimes the guys is gonna feel like I'm trying to be in control. Now we have to talk about this issue. It doesn't like maybe he's gonna think I'm leading the conversation. I don't want to be over his authority or something. So that's why. And then you guys give me good advice. So I will practice that one. Thank you, ladies.
I meant to unmute myself. I was so excited. Maggie, thank you. Thank you for coming up. And, first of all, I am such a fan. Thank you. You have been supporting several of us for a long, long time. And it's so wonderful to see you here. And it just warms my heart when what we do is actually helpful. And what you said about knowing yourself, how many times did we hear Kevin say self-awareness is sexy? But it's really about, and you're able to communicate. Now it's not a good time for me. And then you say what you're going to do. Give me 30 minutes, give me an hour. Ladies, that is a wonderful tip. So thank you so much, Maggie. And I'm going to drop you back down, but we appreciate you so much. All right. Wow. Okay. Oh, let's see. There we are. All right. So I wanted to say just one thing about S.I.G.N.s, and then I'll check and see if there's any other. I don't see anybody else in the back, but I'm going to bring up a comment that, 1 second. S.I.G.N.s said something about being right and being alone. And so I wanted to read that and then also respond to what Maggie said as far as leading the conversation. Let me see, I think I started. But yes, ladies, thinking you're going to charge in and wrestle a man to the ground, even if you are right. Here's a free tip from Auntie Maggie. If you have an opportunity to nail your man to the wall because he did do something that was wrong, but you don't. You handle it with love, with grace, and with feminine energy. And you communicate how it made you feel, but that you're here to prioritize the relationship. That goes a long way from that chess game of having to win. So I wanted to bring that up. I can't find the comment. I'm sure it's in here. But yes, thank you so much, Maggie. Oh, Christopher, thank you for the bullseye. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions in here. I'm just going to scroll one last time, and then we will take our last lap around. We've dropped the link. Again, if you had a question, you can put it in the chat with a Q. Or you can click on the link. All right. Oh, that's such a good one. All right. So let's go ahead and do our last lap around. Thank you all so much. The Wives Club is here for you each week, and we always review Kevin's shows. Thank you, Maggie, for coming up. Thank you all for supporting us in the chat. Again, this episode, that sign language. If there was one thing that I remember Kevin for, it was his acronyms, right? Shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. And like Lisa said, when you start listening to his shows, you will start to pick that up. There's that need to be right. Oh, here's that shaming tactic. This one really struck me. All of his episodes are great, but I thought this one really helped me reflect on those sign language tactics that I used to use. And now I'm getting past that because I can't be a low value woman and want a high value man. All right, AV, I'm going to come to you. Any last thoughts for this week?
Yeah, no, I think if you break down the SIGN acronym, I would just encourage everybody to think outside of the box with what those terms are. Like you hear it, shame, insults, guilt, the need to be right. I think all of us provided some different approaches on how to think about that differently. Like an insult sometimes may not necessarily mean words, right? It could be with actions. You know, shame could be in other ways and show up and manifest in different ways in life, right? So I would encourage you guys to, like Maggie said, you'll see it start to show up. But when you can become reflective and self-reflective on how you can be the best version of yourself as a lady, will ultimately make better homes and make the men in our lives happier. So really, really excited to talk about this discussion this week.
All right, thank you. And I'm sure Lisa will be back. Hermisha, any thoughts as we close out?
I would say, just always, when in doubt, look inward. Take inventory, take responsibility. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. You're gonna feel low, but it's okay. It's healthy, and it's going to make us better women. It's going to make us better. So don't be afraid to own whatever you need to own, because it's going to make you better. So that's what I would say.
All right. And then Lisa, any final thoughts as we close out?
Let me unmute myself. Yeah, I think for me, noticing that past me, present me, even current me, the signs have been there. I've had occasion on using some of them more than I should have. And seeing yourself and listening to Kevin's videos and stuff and recognizing that, I think that's important, even as a current wife, and being in this community and staying in this mindset and being around other like-minded people is helpful. So if you're here, you're in the right place. I know I am. So I'm keep coming back, and hopefully y'all come back and join us as well. So, but I really enjoyed this this episode of Kevin's and the questions and stuff we talked about today. So this was great.
All right. Well, I found the comment. My need to be right got the best of me. I wasn't going to sleep until I found it. But this one right here from Sinji about you can be right, but you can be right and alone in the process. And here in the Wives Club, we promote relationships. And so that one really struck me. Again, ladies, is this the hill that you want to die on? All right, so a little bit of housekeeping as we wrap up. Summer is coming upon us. We are on our way towards monetization. So we got a few things that are cooking up for you guys, but AV has an announcement. I'm going to give her the floor.
Awesome. All right, guys. So we've been doing this for a little bit, a few months now. For us, it's been a lot longer since we've started this work, doing it, starting in Kevin's space. Huge shout out to Maggie, who actually sat down and developed the idea of the Wives Club with Kevin Samuels himself 2 years ago. We've been doing this work for 2 years behind his paywall, behind Patreon. We've been meeting together weekly for that long. It's like almost 600 days. It's a long time, right? 2 years is a really long time. For me in my life, I am taking a step back for the Wives Club. You guys know I'm a law student, finishing up law school. I'm also moving across the country right now. So, the reason why you guys haven't seen me for a few episodes is because I had to stage my house and take these lights down and hide all the things, hide the soundboard, right? I had to put all those things away to make this place pretty to sell, and it did. I started a new job. There's just so much stuff going on in my life, but I think the number one thing that is important, and I'll never forget, is coming back to this notebook here, coming back to the conversations that I had with Kevin, because I am happy to say that there is a man in the picture, right? And it is all due to the coaching that I sat down with Kevin and paid for, applied, learned, was open. Everything that we talk about here in the Wives Club is so serious. And I am just really humbled and lucky that I sat down with him when I did, because it was mission critical. I sat down with him when I was 31, and I'm 33 now, and am, in a situation with someone that is very marriage minded. That would have not happened as soon as it did without without Kevin. So it's a little emotional because, these three ladies on the screen, I have so much love for them. We came up with doing this idea together. It was a scary thing coming outside of a paywall. You guys know, like, some people don't have love for The Godfather, right? So we were all like, whoa, are we going to French toast do this? And we were like, yes, we're going to do it. So, it's actually kind of bittersweet because, this is work I really care about. But capacity wise, it has paid off tenfold. So future wives that are out there, I find myself as a product of Kevin's coaching, a product of this group, a product of, on my way to be a future wife. So I'm just so excited. I'm happy. I will miss this. But at the same time, I just want you guys to see the value in the knowledge that you can learn here. So please, future wives, stick with it. It will pay off. But you got to be willing to do the work. That's the most important thing.
Well, AV, we go back a ways, and although it is bittersweet, I could not be happier for you. The reason why we are even here is because whether you are currently, formerly, or want to be married, we carry ourselves as wives and we prioritize relationships here. And I could not be happier that all the things are falling into place because you have done the work. I'm going to take us down like a little bit of memory lane and then give you guys some updates, and we will close out. But although it is goodbye, for now, you always have an open invitation to come and share what you're learning on your relationship journey. And I'm going to share my screen for just a second, y'all. I'm going to give you all a little bit of a sneak peek way back when. Let me show you all something. So, the Wives Club started in a Patreon, and this is how bad it was when I started. Back in 2021, I would make these videos just myself. And I would say, okay, these are my thoughts. What about you all's? And you can see somebody, you all know her and you love her. She responded. And I asked, hey, can we get together? And can we record something? And she said, yes. I didn't even have a logo. Our AV put together something. She's like, let me put together something. You're wearing these pearls. Let me put together something for you. Now, this was before I hired 10 Plus Sounds. This is a blast from the Wives Club past, showing you all a little bit of what you'll see when you go back. And the very first panel episode, AV put this together. And then it grew. And like I say, Lisa joined us, and then Hermisha joined us. And from the bottom of my heart, I have to say I am so incredibly grateful because it was an idea. I booked that session with Kevin, and I knew I couldn't be the only one, but I didn't know anybody else. And so AV, oh my gosh, am I going to cry? I have to say thank you for being the first one to see me in the Patreon by myself and joining and starting the panel, and look at what we've done. So, bittersweet, but it's goodbye for now. And I know you will keep us updated as things change for you. So you all, with the changes that are coming to the Wives Club, we are going to continue on, and we are going to carry on just a little bit of housekeeping. As school is out and people are transitioning, we are going to take a little bit of a summer hiatus. So let me explain what's going on. We're not going anywhere. The Wives Club will still be here. I actually have some thoughts about giving you all some more insight into those old original videos when it was just me, like, is anybody out there? We will continue to post on the community tab because we are very, very close to monetization, and AV has agreed to come back and rejoin us when we do the monetization party. So stay tuned for that. When I check the back, we have crossed over 4,000 hours. However, those of you all that are content creators know that it has to be 4,000 public watch hours, and we're right around 3,400. We're definitely going to get there. So what I would ask for those of you all who are interested in helping us cross over, I'm going to be putting some playlists together that you can watch or rewatch our content, share it with your friends and family. We'll be adding some additional videos, even though we won't be live streaming, we may premiere them. Lots of good stuff coming, but the next time you see us live here together, it will be for a monetization party. Expecting anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. It could be a little bit longer, but just wanted to let you all know when we are ready, we will definitely celebrate with all of you all who have been here supporting us. So we're going away for a little bit, but you know where to find us. So AV has already said her piece. AV, I'm sorry, such a in my memory, the rotation. Lisa, any final words moving forward?
No, I'm excited for AV, and it's kind of bittersweet because I'm gonna miss her and her soundboard. But hopefully she'll come back to us, if not regularly, occasionally. But I really enjoyed, working with her and all the ladies, and she is going to be missed during this time. So, but I think what she's got going on is a good thing, and I'm supportive of all of that. So, good luck.
All right, and Hermisha, any final farewell words?
No, I'm happy for you, AV. But like she said, this is what it's all about. So it's almost like the application of all the work, So onward and upward. So congratulations. And you got my phone number.
Absolutely. Mission accomplished. All right. So we've covered everything. If I missed your comments, I'm sorry, y'all. Trying to do it all, but we will still be here. The Wives Club lives on. Kevin is not with us, but his catalog just continues to feed all of us. So we will be here. We will keep his memory alive. If you are a current wife, a former wife, or future wife, we want to include you all in the conversation. So please reach out. It started, with just one, but look at what we've done so far. So please reach out. And until then, AV, I'm going to give you our final thank you so much.
Look at 10 plus. Look at 10 plus.
I didn't make it.
Gosh. Look at the beautiful artwork. 10 plus Sounds is the best graphic designers on this platform. Thank you, 10 plus.
Absolutely. So we had to send you off with our love. And like Rodney said, mission accomplished. We are here to promote marriage and relationships. So keep us posted. And we're going to go ahead and let you all have your evening, and stay tuned, stay close to the Wives Club. We will be updating you all. And the next time you see us, we will be celebrating. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Until the monetization party. Goodbye.